Sometimes reality is scarier than any horror movie, and this story proves it. One cold February night in 2018, a call to 911 revealed a shocking truth.
911, what's the emergency?
My wife and I need an ambulance. We're bleeding.
You said someone was in your house?
Yes.
Tell me exactly what happened.
I don't know. Someone's in the house, and next thing I know, I wake up next to my wife and we're bleeding.
You woke up to her scream, and tall figure with ski mask starts fighting with you with a knife.
I felt something sharp.
Mike claimed a masked intruder attacked him and Susan, but the real story was far more sinister. When the cops arrived, they discovered a horrifying scene. Susan was bleeding, and the marks on her body indicated a violent struggle, while the house was unnaturally calm. The locks were undamaged, and there were no indications of the forced entry. Everything outside the house was flawless, as nothing had occurred. On the other hand, inside the house, there were more questions than answers. Detectives tried to get the details of what had happened that evening, but Mike could not satisfy them. The security camera footage was also missing, and above all, the biggest question was, why did Susan's wounds seem so intentional? Hello, friends. Welcome to True Crime Records. Subscribe now to stay updated with the latest true crime stories. Come find out as we explore the high-profile case of Mike and Susan Royale. Mike and Susan Royale were the envy of many. He was a successful businessman, and she was a charming woman. They often seen dining at high-end restaurants and vacationing at luxury resorts. Their Naplesville, Florida mansion reflected their wealth and status. But while Mike's professional life flourished, his personal life was complicated. Mike's first marriage to Dee Dee Hoffman lasted 25 years. Dee Dee described him as kind and dependable, but his workaholic lifestyle left her and their children in the shadows, leading to their quiet divorce in 2005. Shortly after, Mike met Susan, a 38-year-old nurse with charisma and energy. They married in 2007, hoping for a fresh start. In the beginning, everything seems perfect, but by 2015, tension between Mike and Susan had grown. Susan always had a problem with Mike's eldest daughter, Caroline, leading to heated arguments. Susan did not hide her dislike for Caroline, and mostly when she became furious on her actions, she would send Mike sharp, angry messages about his daughter's behavior. Susan wanted and tried to push her out of Mike's life. In an interview, Caroline told the media that how much Mike was under the control of Susan.
She had such walls around him. He wouldn't call me unless he was in a car alone. He wasn't allowed to take my call in front of her.
By the end of 2017, tension in the family had reached to a boiling point. It was the time when Caroline was planning for her wedding, and Mike was eager to fulfill all the dreams of her daughter on her big day. Initially, he allocated $100,000 for the event. However, the cost of the wedding kept increasing, and the final budget raised to $250,000. During the whole wedding, Susan remained upset. She was furious about the expenses.
The last thing I saw before walking down the aisle at my wedding was this white scar from here to here. And in my mind, I was like, what is that?
In November 2017, Mike told Caroline that Susan had physically confronted him several times on the issue of wedding expenses. One day, again on the same issue, she became so furious that she again had a fight with Mike. During the fight, she threw a phone at him and began to hit him. To Mike's surprise, after attacking on him, she herself called the police. Perhaps she was planning to present her version of events first and avoid any charges, but when the police arrived, they found the clear signs of the fight: a broken phone on the floor and overturned furniture. The officers understood that there was a quarrel between husband and wife. They verbally advised both of them to resolve their issues and left. On February 3rd, 2018, Mike and Susan had dinner, hoping to reconcile. Instead, it ended in another argument. Returning home separately, they went to their rooms. Around midnight, Mike entered Susan's room and a confrontation escalated. Susan later described how Mike attacked her with a knife, leaving her injured and terrified. Desperate, Susan convinced Mike to stop by promising not to file for divorce. Mike panicked, quickly fabricating a story about a masked intruder. He even deleted surveillance footage to support his claims. But when police examined the scene, they found no signs of a break-in. Surveillance footage from the restaurant showed Mike and Susan leaving separately and avoiding contact, casting doubt on Mike's story. Investigators discovered bloodstains throughout the house, indicating a violent struggle. Medical experts confirmed Susan's injuries were deliberate, not accidental. As Mike's lies unraveled, his arrest sent shockwaves through his family and friends. Dee Dee, his ex-wife, was in disbelief. "He was always kind and steady," she said. But prosecutors painted a different picture. A man desperate to avoid losing his wealth and control, driven to a reckless act. Mike's lawyers argued he was a victim in an unstable marriage, citing Susan's past aggressive behavior. They claimed Susan's injuries were self-inflicted, a desperate attempt to provoke him. But Susan's legal team countered, questioning why Mike fabricated the intruder story if he had nothing to hide. The trial revealed even more damning evidence. Mike had been registered on multiple dating sites, pursuing a life without Susan. His attempts to erase footage and his inconsistent accounts painted him as manipulative and deceitful. In December 2019, the jury delivered its verdict.
The person I heard through the evidence and the witnesses was somebody who was cold, they were brutal. On count one, the attempted first-degree premeditated murder, I'm going to sentence you to 30 years imprisonment in the park.
Mike Royale was guilty of attempted manslaughter, evidence tampering, and witness intimidation. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Even behind bars, Mike's dark side emerged. Rumors swirled that he tried to hire someone to harm Susan. While these claims lacked sufficient evidence, they added to his tarnished reputation. Meanwhile, Susan filed for divorce and fought for her share of the mansion. For her, the house symbolized both a traumatic past and her fight for freedom. Mike's fall from grace, from a successful businessman to a convicted criminal, is a stark reminder of how unchecked ambition and hidden resentments can destroy lives. His lies cost him his freedom, while Susan paid with her peace of mind. Who's the real villain? Who's the victim? In the end, the answers may never be fully clear. But one thing is certain: secrets, lies, and the thirst for control come with a heavy price.
The Akaya house in Basius was a sight to behold, radiating sophistication and surrounded by immaculately kept grounds. It served as a testament to the relentless dedication and hard work of Halil Akaya, the man behind its grandeur. The towering gates, the expansive driveway, and the luxurious car parked out front were unmistakable markers of affluence. But hidden beyond those gates were not only the trappings of wealth, but also deeply buried strains. Halil was 42 years old. He was born in a small town in southeastern Turkey. From a young age, he helped his father in running a family-owned auto repair shop. He served in military as well. And then he moved to Istanbul, where he started working as a mechanic and eventually opened his own repair shop. With his hard work and dedication, his business expanded into a chain of auto repair centers. Soon he got married to an elegant woman. Her name was Elif. She belonged to a wealthy family. She was 7 years younger than Halil. As a child, she had dreams of becoming an actress, but reality had different plans for her. She moved to Istanbul to pursue a career in marketing. Elif swiftly adapted to the social elite's glamorous lifestyle, yet her heart felt detached. Their marriage functioned more like a formal alliance than a genuine partnership. On the surface, they appeared harmonious, attending social gatherings, donating generously to charity, and presenting an image of marital bliss. Behind the scenes, however, Elif felt they were merely coexisting. Halil was engrossed in his work, and Elif focused on public appearances and household management. Not long ago, Elif suggested hiring a housekeeper, citing her busy schedule with charity work as the reason. In truth, she simply wanted relief from the day-to-day chores. Through her connections, she found Ayşe, a young woman from a rural background who had come to Istanbul in search of work. At 24, Ayşe seemed perfect, modest, polite, and diligent. She quickly adjusted to the Akaya household's routines, focusing solely on her duties, cleaning, cooking, and maintaining the house. Ayşe's arrival, however, began to stir undercurrents of discomfort. From her first day, Halil seemed unusually attentive to her. Though he avoided overt comments, his lingering presence was hard to ignore. Ayşe, cautious by nature, tried to stay out of his way, but her attempts only seemed to escalate his interest. Meanwhile, Elif, engrossed in her social endeavors, either didn't notice or chose to overlook these subtle shifts. As the days passed, Halil's behavior became increasingly unsettling. He would find reasons to talk to Ayşe, ask intrusive questions, or linger too close for comfort. Ayşe, though deeply uneasy, feared losing her job and the stability it provided for her family. She resolved to endure the situation, but found it increasingly challenging to hide her anxiety. Then one day, Ayşe disappeared without a trace. Elif was puzzled at first, assuming Ayşe might be unwell. But as days turned into weeks with no word, her concern deepened. Calls went unanswered, and even Ayşe's family had no idea of her whereabouts. The mystery unsettled everyone. When the police got involved, their investigation unearthed troubling inconsistencies. Surveillance footage revealed Ayşe leaving the house, but gaps in the timeline hinted at foul play. A neighbor mentioned seeing Halil's car late at night, a detail that planted a seed of doubt in Elif's mind. Gradually, memories of Halil's unusual behavior surfaced, fueling her suspicions. The situation reached a climax when police executed a search warrant at the Akaya home. In the garage, they uncovered evidence linking Halil to Ayşe's disappearance, including her belongings and traces of blood. Confronted with mounting proof, Halil confessed. He admitted to luring Ayşe back to the house under false pretenses, assaulting her, and ultimately causing her death in a fit of rage. The revelations shattered Elif's world. As Halil faced life in prison, she grappled with the weight of her guilt, wondering if her preoccupation with appearances had blinded her to the signs. The Akaya house, once a symbol of success, became a haunting reminder of the tragedy it concealed. Sherry Coleman and her two sons were strangled in their sleep. Who was responsible for these murders? Why it happened? If you don't believe in evil, I hope you will now, when you will come to know the reality that why this innocent woman and her children were murdered in their bed at night. Hello, friends. Welcome to the True Crime Record. Subscribe now to stay updated with our latest true crime stories. Come find out as we explore this high-profile case. Today, we will talk about the Coleman family murders. Chris Coleman was born on March 20th, 1977, to a family of Christian pastors. In his childhood, he was highly obedient to his parents. He took part in all church activities. He was also a good student and athlete. However, he was also known for being kind, sensitive, and introvert. When he was in high school, a Marine Corps recruiter visited his school and discussed military service with students. Chris became so inspired by his personality that he decided to join the armed forces after high school graduation. There he worked with canines, and that's where he met his future wife, Sherry Weiss, who was in the Air Force at that time. They got married in 1997 and had two kids, Garrett and Gavin. They started living in Colombia. Chris left his Army service and got a job of working as bodyguard for Joyce Meyer, who was a world-famous Christian televangelist. During this job, Chris made a dangerous enemy somewhere out there in the non-religious world. On November 2008, he started receiving threats through emails. Chris filed a police report that he was being stalked by some sicko. Luckily, a detective sergeant just lived across the road, and he set up a camera in his house to keep a check. However, they did not catch anybody. On 5th of May 2009 at 6:43 a.m., Chris called the detective from Jim that his wife is not attending the phone. Can you please go and check if anything is fine? The detective sergeant went to Chris' house and he found the Coleman family dead. He saw the walls were spray painted all over the house with strange messages from the killer that I told you this would happen. When Coleman reached the home, he was shocked to see all that. Police tore the place apart carefully to find any evidence. They also questioned Coleman, who told the police that he left the house at 5:40 a.m. in the morning for gym, but police was able to tell that they had been murdered before Chris left the house, because when the police found the bodies, they were stiff cold. They were dead for a while. So the police brought this up to Chris. After the investigation, the police was quickly able to trace that the IP address of that hate-filled emails was of Chris's own house. Then they found a text message from Sherry's phone that she sent to her friend that Chris wants a divorce. She also told her friend that if something happened to her, Chris could be involved in it. Police found Chris's DNA under Sherry's fingernails and also found on Chris's credit card statement that he had purchased a can of spray paint a few months before. Police also found videos from his computer with a woman. Her name was Tara Linz. Chris was having an affair with her. Tara was the best friend of Sherry. She lived in the St. Petersburg, Florida. Police also investigated from her, but other than having an affair with Chris, she was not involved in the murders. Chris was arrested on May 19th when the medical examiner confirmed that the family had been killed around 3 a.m., and Chris was at home at that time. The police waited so long because they wanted to make sure they had completed their investigation. Now police had immense evidences against Chris. After the trial, it was actually hard for jury to get a unanimous verdict, but then from one of the photos of Tara and Chris, jury found a printed date of October 2008 on the back of the photo, which confirmed that Chris and Tara were having the affair before they admitted they had, which increased the likelihood of Chris plotting the murder as a result of the affair. Jury sentenced him 3 life sentences and a verdict of never to be released. Even in prison, Chris proclaimed his innocence, but all of his appeals were rejected. So Chris Coleman will remain in prison for whole life. If you want to see more videos like this, please be sure to like and subscribe.